One of our tractors pulled over to the engine shop right from the truck shop, and he just got into service, and his check engine light was off, but his OBD light was on. And he said that the yellow check engine light was on after he started up and backed out. And so over there, and it's just down the street, over there they had shut the key off, restarted it, and they still had the fault. And then the fault went out when he was driving over to us. And so he took off and left. We cleared the inactive fault. And then he called and said that the light had been going on and off, and the check engine light and the OBD light was on. So when he got back, we brought it in and checked it out, and this is what we found. So when he came back in and we hooked up to it, we had this fault: 4727 active, 1 count, amber light on, and he said the yellow light was on most of the time he was out driving, which was probably the entire time. And the injector metering rail pressure data was valid, but above normal operating range, least severe. So what that basically means is if he was driving down the road and the ECM was commanding, let's say 25,000 PSI, he had about 26,000 PSI. If it was commanding 18, he had about 19. So it wasn't terribly high, but it was always higher than it should have been. If we look over at the right, this had been going on for 283 hours, 48 minutes, and 54 seconds. And when we hooked up to it and keyed on at our shop there, 12 minutes had gone by since we flipped the key on and actually pulled the image from the ECM. So the fault had been active the whole time he had been out. So remember I said earlier we keep in the back of our head that this happened right after a service. So let's take a look and see what can cause this fault. And that down below, if we take a look, we'll see that a plugged or restricted fuel return to the tank can cause it. And that will cause it because if the return line plugs up, the pressure builds against the drain on the actuator housing, and the fuel actuator can't accurately control fuel pressure because when it wants to route fuel back to the tank, it can't route it back as the volume that it wants. So more fuel is going into the high pressure pump head, hence the pressure is going to be higher. The next thing is a problem with the fuel actuator or the mounting block. Well, those were okay. We keep in mind again that the problem started right after a service. Air and fuel will cause it. Well, since it started after a service, we decided to put that test line on the filter pressure fitting. That's the line that has the orifice in it. We threw it in a bucket of fuel and started the engine up. And lo and behold, we've got a lot of small bubbles. So at that point, we just took a short line, threw it in a bucket of fuel, and we screwed it onto the block on the side of the engine by the electric lift pump. And we got the thing primed, and all of our air went away. So then we hooked the original line, the number 10 line, back up, and we went back to the filter on the frame, and we drained the bowl and took the bowl down and took a good look, and we found a hairline crack in the plastic threads that went down to where the O-ring seats that seals that bowl to the filter housing. And we replaced the bowl and installed a new filter and put it back together, and our air was gone, cleared the fault. He left. I always have the drivers call me in about a half an hour and let me know if everything seems okay, if we're not positive that we may have gotten it. And in this case, the fella said, yep, no problem. So it was just air in the fuel. Thanks for joining me. See you next time on Engine Shop Joe.